we are live. Go ahead.
Howdy, folks. Howdy, folks. Welcome. Welcome to our live in support of our Purple Heart project, which, I don't know, we have a countdown. Next class is in April. Well, the classes went on sale. They are available for purchase. I know October is sold out. All the other classes still available, Jake?
Yeah.
So October's the only one that is sold out. And to the schedule this year, we have 2 week-long classes, wood turning classes with Kip Christensen here, and we have 1 intermediate class on drawer making. I'll give a shout out, welcome to everybody once we get going. Frick, you want to get, this is an open, I was going to say open mic. This is an open, ask me whatever you want. I'll either tell you the truth or lie. Go ahead, Frick, you have anything?
Richard in the chat says,
Hi, Richard in the chat.
do you put a micro bevel on your router plane blades?
Yes. No, I'm sorry. Router plane blades, no, too small. Oh, I'm sorry, say it again. Yes, I put a micro bevel on the bevel side. I was thinking of back bevel. I sharpen them the same way I would sharpen a chisel. Keep the back flat. If I can get Jake to bring the camera over. Keep the back flat, or the bottom side, whichever you want to call it. See if I have a, yeah, I do. Keep the back side flat. And then on the bevel side, I have the stone on the edge of the platform down there, so I can set the stone on the primary bevel and just lift it up slightly and just do a little bit of a, micro bevel. Actually, on something like that, even if you had 1,000 grit would be fine based on how it works. It's not leaving necessarily rarely is it ever leaving a finished surface. By the way, this is a piece of yellow cedar. Jake and I were filming, we did a YouTube today on comparing a Krenov style wooden plane, which I made probably 40 years ago, to a metal bodied plane. I much prefer the metal, just the ease of adjustment, both laterally and advancing and retracting, open and closing the throat. You just can't do that as conveniently with a wooden bodied plane. But I do like wooden bodied planes in the sense of you can make custom ones if you need to. You're doing a round bottom chest, a round chest. I made one that has a matching curvature on the sole of the plane, so you can go in and actually plane that up. What was the question? Oh, yeah, long ways away from that. Go ahead, Frick, next.
Matt G in the chat.
I wish you guys could smell this stuff. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Matt G in the chat.
Hello, Matt.
He says, after the table saw, in what order would you buy shop machines? Top 5.
Stick your nose in that. After the table saw, what would I buy?
Yeah, top 5 shop machines you would buy
Top 5 shop
saw.
That's a tongue twister. Top 5 shop machines. Table saw number 1, and I wouldn't even question buying a saw stop. That's worth spending 2 years saving the money if you have to. Not only for the safety reason, but it's a better machine. And I don't say that without some experience. I've worked on just about every table saw there is, every brand anyway. So after the table saw, I would buy a jointer. And if you're going to spend the money on a jointer, it doesn't make sense to buy anything less than an 8-inch. Look at these. Whoops. Okay, so it didn't work. Try it again. Supposed to be answering a question. Doesn't want to leave home.
Give him a question.
He just did.
Question?
So number 2 would be a jointer, and I would buy an 8-inch. Number 3, well, actually, you know what? I'm going to give you the top 5, and then I'm going to prioritize them because I'm trying to think of both, and my head's not that big. So table saw, jointer, drill press, planer, and bandsaw. Now, as I look around the room, I didn't forget anything. Oh, I'm gonna on the second list. I'm gonna put a chop saw, a lathe. I'm gonna leave grinder off because it's not a big purchase. So here's my top 5. Not in this order yet. Table saw, 8-inch jointer, drill press, thickness planer. If you're gonna get a thickness planer, you got to get at least 12-inch, and a bandsaw. And if you're gonna do a bandsaw, a minimum of 14-inch. So number 1 would be the table saw. Number 2 would be the jointer. Number 3 is probably going to have to be the planer. Number 4, I would make the drill press, and number 5 would be the bandsaw. So let me give them to you. Table saw, jointer, planer, drill press, bandsaw. And you don't realize how important the drill press is. It gets used. It gets used probably almost as much as the table saw. Excuse me. Next, Rick.
Todd Laginus.
Hi, Todd.
Where is he? If Rob was going to make a new bench, what would you charge?
Say that again?
If you were to make a new bench, what would you charge?
You mean one of these?
Yeah.
Well, if somebody called me and said, Rob, build me a bench?
Yeah, basically.
No, you said what would you change, didn't you?
He said
No,
charge.
it says charge.
In the chat?
Yeah.
Well, now that you two are arguing over it, is it Todd?
Yeah.
Todd, clarify that. Charge, meaning somebody wanted me to build them a bench, or was it change? And we'll come back to that question as soon as we hear from you. Go ahead, Frick.
Next one is from Rex 2007.
Hey, Rex. I wonder if that's Rex Hansen.
No, it's not. Is a finely tuned scraper surface as good as a hand plane surface?
No, I don't think so. There's certain woods that might compete, but not normally. Hope that doesn't land on the lens. That's the viscosity test, by the way, for a shaving. How long it takes to hit the ground. We used to do this all day long at a wood show, especially when it was slow. Did I answer that question? I got to get my head into this.
Oh, he did mean to say change.
He
But
did,
he did
mean
say charge.
change?
It did say charge, I saw that, but you meant to.
Okay, so what would you change?
Okay, so if I was to build a new bench, this bench, what would I change? Wow. Nobody commented on my festive hat.
How do you know?
Ooh, what would I change? It's a hard question, because if there was something I would change, I would have already changed it. I wouldn't live with it if it wasn't working. Rarely ever need more capacity in here, so that wouldn't change. And I don't find this too far out, so that's not an issue.
Dog spacing.
Hole spacing? No, that's okay. Width of the bench, you really can't plane out here, so that.
Oh, I had that idea the other day.
What? What? He's calling you.
That strip down this side,
For what?
where it's broken up, so you could put a clamp down in. You didn't.
Oh, yes. Well, so what Jake's talking about is sometimes I like to be able to clamp against this. So on my previous bench that is now Jake's desk, I made the tool trays removable. They set down in place so that if I wanted to be able to clamp on both sides, I could do that. But I don't need to do that now because I have access to all those other benches out there that I can get around both sides. So if I didn't have that, I would make the bottom of the tool tray removable. So every once in a while, when it's full of junk like this, I can just open them up, dump it all out, and close it again. But actually, so I could be able to clamp around both sides using this as a platen. Oh yes, I know it changed. I would have. I made the legs, The 2 trestles, I made them out of cedar, Spanish cedar, because it was the closest thing that I could find in that thickness that had the color of mahogany. And it was just way too soft. It's all dinged up. Mine's a mahogany would have got dinged up too. So pretty minor stuff. I mean, this is time tested. It's been around a long time. And I don't mean mine, but the whole scheme.
We're back.
We're back.
Rick, do you have a question?
I thought we were on a question.
What? It was so long ago, I don't remember it. What was the question?
Oh, no, it was the, what would you change?
Yeah.
And then it was the, is a finely tuned scraper surface as good as a hand plane surface?
No.
Okay, so the next one's from Owen. He says,
Hi, Owen.
why do you build a bench top where to wood expands upwards and not across the top?
Read that again, please.
Why do you build a bench top where wood expands upwards and not across the top? I'm
I
not
think
sure.
they're talking about how you edge, how you face, you laminate the faces. You laminate the faces of your bench.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's probably thinking that people tend to think that the boards get wider and narrower, not thicker.
Yeah, boards move, and it depends on how it's cut in the tree, how it's cut out of the tree. So this bench is going to get wider and it's going to get thicker.
But whichever of those two is larger, we'll see a greater increase.
Yeah. I allow for it. Yeah, if you haven't seen the build, as this moves, this is glued and bolted right here. This fits into a triple spline. It's dry fit. This bolt is in a large diameter hole, so it allows it to move. This tool, this ramp, has a little spring-loaded piece on the end that constantly moves one way or the other to allow for the expansion. So other than that, I don't quite understand what you're asking me, but try again if you like. Next, Frick.
Bill in the chat says,
Hey, Bill.
could you please do a video on making a rabbited half-blind dovetail, or maybe just a brief explanation how you approach it? He's from Pinehurst, North Carolina.
Okay. Do a video on making a half-blind,
A rabbited half-blind dovetail.
a rabbited half-blind dovetail. A rabbited half-blind dovetail. I wish I had a diagram so I could understand exactly what you're asking me. Obviously, it's not doing a half-blind because we've done lots of those. So send me a little more description so I can understand what you're saying, and then we can address it. Try another one, Frick. We're not batting 1,000 here.
So Mark asked, what would you charge to build the bench?
Oh, a bench like this, the last one that I did was $17,000, and that was
12 years ago?
12 years ago. So if somebody was serious about it, $25,000 would be, I'd be hard pressed to return the phone call. Not interested in taking on a project like that. So whatever amount it would have to be enough to say, okay, this guy's serious and it's worth it. But $25,000 is not. I mean, the price of materials doesn't really factor in much, at least it didn't used to, but now, what are we paying for walnut?
Ken said it was 15.
A board foot. Wow, crazy. When I was building furniture, walnut was $5, $6 a board foot. So materials have gotten, and there's over $1,000 in wood in this. But like I said, the price of the materials is not the big thing. It's just the sheer workload. So, like I said, $25,000 would not be something that I would grab my interest. And I don't mean to sound snooty, but yeah.
Bill said about the half-blind
half-blind?
rabbited. He said, it's a half-blind dovetail, but drawer sides have little lips that protrude.
Oh.
He says all his Ethan Allen
yeah,
furniture have them.
Okay, so what?
He says all of his Ethan Allen furniture have
Yeah,
them.
so what you're talking about is the drawer front goes out beyond and either covers the cabinet side or partially covers the cabinet side. A bit of a pain because, in fact, the only way that I would do that, Bill, is I would let me show you. So if this was the drawer front, I would take my drawer front and I would carefully label. I would cut off. Now, if you're going to have that much of an end lap, you're going to have a sizable amount. So you're probably going to need at least 3/16 of an inch. But I would cut that 3/16 of an inch off, save it. I would go ahead and I would cut a through dovetail and what was left. I would fit it to the opening. And the last thing I would do is I would glue this piece back on. And I would put a clamp here and a clamp here to line it up perfectly and glue it back on. Now, why? Because there's no way that you can fit, I'll use this little one. There's no way you're going to be able to plane that to get the fit you want if you've got a piece that's sticking out here. How are you going to plane that? It's impossible. So do it like this and then add that piece after the fact, and because you cut it right off of the same piece, you glue it back on, you should be able to shouldn't be able to see your joint. That's the only way to do it. The only way to do it that allows you the opportunity to do this type of fitting that we demand and still have a finished surface. That's how. Jack, why don't we do that? We'll do that. We'll make it. That'd be a good video. You want to make a note, send it to Luther, get him to write a script for it. So what do we call that? An overlay, a rabbited overlay dovetailed drawer front. Thank you. And if you tag his name to that, we'll give him a shout out when we do the video. Can you make a note of that? What's his name?
Bill
what?
Shilkitis. Hopefully I said that properly.
Yes.
Shilkitus.
All right, Bill, you're on. Next, Rick.
Next one's from Roger in the chat.
Hey, Roger.
He said, I'm just beginning to hand plane flat stock to a final finish, but sometimes I'm getting burnishing streaks on the surface. Am I pressing down too hard on the plane?
Okay, I have to hear this question twice because the first question gets me in the where are we going, and now I got to listen to finer details. So say it again, please.
I'm just beginning to hand plane flat stock to a final finish, but sometimes I'm getting burnishing streaks on the surface. Am I pressing down too hard on the plane?
No, not pressing down too hard. Sometimes if you get a shaving stuck, a piece of wood stuck in there, that'll do it. And a burnishing spot can also be, you might be misinterpreting a burnish spot for a dull spot on the blade. I would check the throat to make sure that there isn't any shavings in there, but I mean that would only happen once and you'd notice it. Every time almost every time, I'll say 99%, that allows for that rare exception. Any planing issues are a result of the sharpening of the blade. So if it's not working properly, go back and resharpen. And if you get it right, you'll usually notice. With the exception would be that you've dinged the side of your plane and it's left a little mark that is now protruding below the surface, and that'll leave a mark in your wood. But it's almost always a sharpening issue. 32 seconds to sharp. Check it out. Next, Rick. By the way, we do this in support of our Purple Heart project. I mentioned that classes are up for sale, so you can get in on them. We will bring in 42 combat wounded veterans next year. The selection of the application is still open. We close it, the first 4 classes closes around January, Jake? I think.
No, I think it's May.
It can't be May. We get classes in April. When do we?
I don't know.
I think it's around middle of January. We stop taking applications, and then we do the selection process, and then we open it up for the September-October class, a little bit later in the year. So if you know anybody who would qualify and would benefit from it, let them know. Next, Rick, please.
Jeff Schnabb asks how many hours it would take you to build that bench, estimating, and not videoing.
The one I'm leaning on?
Yeah.
Well, when we did film it, it was about 180 episodes. And those episodes were a half hour back then?
Yep.
Half hour long, so 180, that's 90 hours. And we did, and we didn't duplicate. So if I showed you, if we filmed dovetailing that corner, we weren't going to film dovetailing that corner. So there was, anytime there was duplication, we wouldn't film that. So I'm going to say you could at least double that time, 180 hours-ish. If you're a combat wounded vet that has been to one of our classes, in other words, you're a PHP alumni, please say your name in the chat so we can give you a shout out. And I must also mention that today is the 83rd anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941. That was a long time ago. And I've been to Pearl Harbor. I wish I had had the opportunity to spend a couple of days there. We were only over there for 2 or 3 hours, but I'd love to go back and see more of it.
You need to remember our push instead of donations.
Or what? Oh, right, yes. So, I forgot. So what we're doing now, as a means of helping, raising money is not easy, even if you have a good cause. I'm involved in 2, this one and Sleep in Heavenly Peace, which is where we build beds. We had a build yesterday. We built 3 beds. We build beds for children that don't have a bed to sleep in between the ages of 3 and 17. I would suggest that if you would like to get involved in that, look out for a local chapter that you can participate with. And anyway, so we're always having to raise money, and it's so much easier if we get people that will just commit to donating X number of dollars each month, and it's really easy on the page, and then it comes out. You don't even notice it, but at least we can bank on it. Our cost last year was, there's a disaster out there, Jake. Our cost last year was $350,000 US. That's what it cost to transport, feed, house, train, and equip 42 combat wounded veterans from all over the United States, mostly Canada, and some European countries, and Australia. I don't know what the expense is going to be this year based on increase in prices, but that money has to come from somewhere. We cover a big chunk of it. But last year was the first year that we actually raised the $350,000, thanks to John, who pulled us through right there in the end, my friend in Florida. So we could really use the help. So could they, mostly. So if you would consider registering for a reoccurring donation, this is hot. For every 10 that we get each time, we'll give away about a $300 prize.
Regardless of the amount?
Yeah, regardless of the amount. Do what you can. Do what you can. We appreciate it. They appreciate it. Big shout out to Angie. Angie's at home watching, and she and her sister Lynn take care of all of our t-shirts. They do a fantastic job packaging it up. And a big, And she covers whenever Jake's away. She works overtime. Jake just had her run ragged last time. Anybody to shout out to while you're digging out the next question, Frick?
Jake usually keeps.
All right, give me another question while he's doing that, please.
I got it.
Oh, you got him? Who you got?
Casper,
Casper.
the ghost.
Yeah, way over in Denmark. Casper.
Ferris.
Ferris Bueller, my buddy. Ferris Butler, but we give him the name Bueller. Good guy, great guy, does a lot for vets.
Andrew.
Which Andrew?
Yeah, good point.
What?
Burroughs.
Oh, Andrew, in right here. Andrew was gonna. Can we get Andrew on tonight? Andrew was going to share his story on coming to the PHP and what it did for him. So I'm going to let you guys go to work on that and see if because he said he would do it. And I apologize, Andrew, for not telling you about it. I got caught up with everything else going on. I'll give you an update on my son too tonight. So if you can get Andrew on, if you can figure that out, Frick.
I'll need his contact info.
Yeah, Andrew, contact Frick at text Frick.
Yeah, no.
Why? What's wrong with that?
You're not putting my
Well,
public
why would
information.
who cares?
One of you has it. You can send it to me.
I don't have it.
Call him during the day at Costco.
It's
He
not that
doesn't
I
do
don't
anything
trust the
in there.
people in this
What?
video. It's not that I don't trust the people on this chat, but
Sure.
someone might watch it after.
So what are you saying, Frick?
They have bots for these things that
Jeffrey.
automatically gather
Jeffrey
your information.
O'Connor. So I got to tell you a little something about Jeff O'Connor. We need to show that clip too. What's up with the voice? Can you not do that? It's just-
That'll give us a copyright strike,
I
probably.
don't even can.
Oh, okay. So anyway, during the Patriot Awards, Jeff O'Connor was responsible for part of that Patriot Award, and they gave him a shout out on the news channel. I was a proud friend that day. He's going to be making stuff out of that same blue dyed quilted maple that was part of the flag. Anyway, that was pretty cool. Anybody else, Jake?
Michael Delvoye.
Hey, Michael.
Luther Jr.
Not Bubba.
Boom Boom.
Boom Boom. Luther Jr.
And Wally.
And Wally up in Ontario. Howdy, Wally. Okay, Frick, question?
Yep, this one's from Paul Kirby.
Hi, Paul.
He says, "Hey Rob, assuming you have a selection of blades with different grind angles available, any reason to prefer a bevel up versus a bevel down plane?"
Nope. Hate bevel up planes. Personal. I don't like them at all. And I'll give you my little history lesson. So Stanley developed the 64 and the 62 and the 164. That was a low angle smoother and a low angle jack. I don't know how long ago. They never made them for very long because they weren't very popular. Back in a time when you had a percentage of the population that actually used hand planes professionally, Stanley came out with these and they didn't take. So as a result, they're extremely expensive as antiques now. And then other companies have produced them thinking that they would somehow strike a wonderful chord with the population, but blah. Don't like them, too light, just don't like them. Blade sits down there low. There's the traditional bench plane is the way to go. That is my opinion only. It's got a little bit of time behind it and a little bit of experience, but that's what I like. You decide. I hear there's another 5.5, a super 5.5 in the works. You'll hear more about that really soon. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Simon Bernard.
Simon.
He says, "Any tips on making 1/4-inch dowel for hidden hinge box? I keep snapping them."
Okay, well, if you're snapping them, then you got your sizing isn't right. Let me show you. So, Jake, can you come in close? If you're snapping them, there's too much friction somewhere, right? So that may either be that you're not sizing the dowel, or it may be that you're using a wood that's not naturally oily, and as a result of that, holy smokes, how did that get all chewed up like that? Look how that's all chewed up in the opening. I didn't do
Is
that.
that from corners?
Yeah. We take the corners off. Anyway, so first thing I would do is I make sure you got a naturally oily wood, and then you may have to do, I have shims underneath this. So when I expose the top of the circle like that, that makes sure that I'm going to be too low, and then I can shim underneath this to raise it up until I'm cutting at the top of the circle, and I'm coming out with 0.0 or 0.25. If you had that too high, you can't go any lower. If you're too low, you can always pad it up. So that would be the suggestion. And don't force it, meaning don't try to push it too hard. It's a finicky process, but you get it dialed in and it works beautifully. That's why it was as ugly as it is, because once I got it fixed, I wasn't caring about what it looked like. Next, Rick. Are we struggling?
No, we're good. Jimmy Sinowaski.
Hey, Jimmy.
When using a
Hey,
face
Jimmy,
frame
in
and
response to an email.
when using a face frame and adding drawers, how do you fill in the inside to make a piston fit drawer?
Oh, I don't have an example here. So what Jimmy's talking about is you build a box, and then this is kind of dated because they really don't use face frames much anymore. Then you would put a face frame all the way around. So now you've got the outside of your carcass like this. You've got your face frame sitting here, and you want to build a traditional fitting drawer. So what are you going to do with all this space in here? Well, if it wasn't too much, I'd pad all this surface out. If it's a lot, I would just go in with a block. I would go in with a block bigger than that, but I would fill it in like so. Make sure that's flush. I would have a little bit bigger than that. And you don't have to worry about putting it up here as well, because the drawer is going to run against this, but this is what's going to keep it from sliding side to side like that. So fairly easy to do. And then just if that's cross-grain construction, by the way, so your grain on your case is running this way. Here's your face frame, and you're going to put a piece on there. So if you do that, you got to make sure that you fasten it here. I would glue and fasten it here, but back here, I would put a screw in there in a large diameter hole with a washer countersunk in, so there's nothing protruding, but that's going to allow it to move. So it complicates it a little bit, but you can do it. I've done it before numerous times. I don't build much with face frames anymore. It's all been replaced now with more of that European look, which is either the drawer front sits over the case or it's inset like this. Frick?
Christopher Hurst wants to know, what are your top 5 tools you enjoy using the most?
Oh, top 5 tools. We're actually going to do a video this week, right away, on Rob's top 5 tools for Christmas. Top 5 tools I enjoy using the most. I'm going to lay them out right here. This isn't the same one as I'm talking to you about the video we're going to do. This would be number 1. This would be number 2. This would be number 3. This would be number 4. And I'm going to exclude my sharpening stones as instead of, I'm not going to call that a tool. What would be next? And I'm going to exclude my my Dovetail marking knife and my Sean shim, but they would be I'm thinking more of traditional tools. They would be right there at the top. I don't think there's another plane that's going to fit that category. Maybe, oh yeah, no, over here. I love this Crosscut. It cuts like a dream. Oh my, it's beautiful. There, that's my top five favorite tools to use. Next, Rick. And you can buy them tonight. Hey, can we do a, Jake? What? Can we do a flash sale, or does that take time can we do a flash sale?
On what?
Well, if I wanted to take, say, 10 dovetail saws and sell them at a really discounted price for a short period of time, could we do that?
At some point in the future, yeah.
Couldn't do it tonight?
Not right now, no.
Why, it's take a long time?
Yeah.
Like how long?
20 minutes?
So you could do it now and it'll be ready in 20 minutes?
If I had nothing else to do, yeah.
What do you have to do?
Manning the chat and the...
Oh, okay. Okay, next, Rick.
Next one comes from Al Dunlop. He says, "Hi everyone.
Hi, Al.
Do you have any recommendations on how to keep your motivation strong when projects are few and far between and funds are getting low? Have a great night, everyone."
So Al, I'm looking, trying to remember. Al's looking here, and Frick's talking over there. So I'm always turning and looking over here. Say that again, please, Frick.
Do you have any recommendations on how to keep your motivation strong when projects are few and far between and funds are getting low? So I'm assuming he does projects for other people, and he's...
Oh, so you're doing it professionally?
I think that's what it sounds like.
Well, oh, now you're bringing back nightmares. Back when I was trying to survive and feed a family off of this, there's always room to improve your skills. And so if nothing else, I would just be working on whatever it is you like doing, whether it's dovetails, mortise and tenon dovetails, more fun. But I would just, I would practice my dovetails until I got them perfect. All of this helps because when it comes time to actually building something, now you cut your time in half. But I like always designing something new. What are we working on right now? Oh, we've got a couple of new tools. I found one that is so helpful in cutting dovetails. We're trying to release that right away. I hope he's not dropping something on his... well, we're working on... I'll bring that disaster over here, can you, Jake? Yeah. Can I ask what he's...
It's a pipe. I don't know why it keeps dropping.
So this is part of the question of answering. I always like to have something going. I always like to try to create something new, and I took on this one, and it's been a challenge. So we are in the process of doing that desk. Remember, I don't know where the model is. We're doing a desk in the online workshop. I don't have the model here, and trying to do something new. So I want the drawer front, the veneer. I bought some. How much did we pay for that veneer? $1,000? Some Macassar ebony veneer, that wide. Beautiful stuff. So if you can imagine the two drawer boxes that are going to be underneath the desk, they are going to, they're going to sit up underneath, and they're going to be Macassar ebony veneer. And I want the drawer fronts. I'll get Jake to come over here. I want the drawer front, which is white oak with English brown oak veneer. So I got some English brown oak veneer from Mel, and the veneer is going to run from here over to here. So when you open up the drawer, the case has the grain running this way, and it's the same piece of veneer that goes across the drawer front. And so in other words, I've got one big piece of veneer that's been cut multiple times. And anyway, I wanted to experiment before I started cutting into this expensive veneer to see what it was going to look like. And I had a bunch of these drawer boxes that were left over from a drawer making workshop several years ago. So I decided, well, let's try it on this. And as I got doing it, I got really interested in this. So I veneered the sides. I'm going to veneer the top and the bottom. So it's going to look like a big English brown oak cube with drawers in it. But trying to keep all these pieces in order and line up the grain is proven to be a real challenge. So motivating yourself. I like always trying to come up with something new and working on the idea to see if it works. If it works, it does. If it doesn't, well, you tried. So I guess that's what I would suggest. Always have something you're working on your own with, just to keep your skills up and to expand your creativity. Speaking of which, I wanted to have that tool cabinet sitting here. When Jake comes back, I'll get him to move it. Next, Frick, please.
David Cohn
Hi, David.
says, what is your wood preference for wood species and joint type for photo frames?
What is my wood preference and joint? Say that again.
Like if you were making a photo frame, what wood species and joint type would you
So a
use?
photo frame is a picture frame?
Yeah.
Okay. What joint?
What wood would you pick and what joint type would you pick?
Oh, well, the wood choice would be whatever goes with the picture. I did one for a family portrait, for a picture, and it was done at the beach. So it was sand and rocks. So the frame was made out of white oak that I sandblasted, and I purposely had the dovetail. I dovetailed it together, so it was kind of a shadow box frame, big frame. And the dovetails came out. They're proud. I sandblasted it. So when you sandblast red oak, the fast-growing spring wood erodes real quickly, and the much denser summer wood doesn't, so you get this driftwood appearance. And then you paint it with a mixture of vinegar and iron filings, and that reacts with the tannic acid in oak and turns it a weathered gray almost instantly. So that picture frame is dovetailed, and the dovetails stick, are proud. The tails and pins stick out a little bit. Actually, Jake, can you bring me that weathered oak box, please? I'll show it to you. So, no favorite wood, whatever tone is going to work well with the picture. And I like to try to get away from just the flat miter, kind of boring. Do something to lift it up. I have a painting upstairs that a friend of mine did of a tugboat. So that was a big oak frame, it had teak inlay. And then on the center, it had rope that goes all the way around. Three-strand rope made out of what was the rope made out of? Hemp. Yeah, and then mitered the corners. So, yeah, just do something different. Just get away from the flat miter. But if you're going to use a flat miter, you can strengthen it in numerous ways. A spline is the easiest. And if you want to see it, you can always glue the flat miter together. You can glue the flat miter together and it'll hold there plenty long enough for you to then run it over the table saw up on its edge so you can cut a spline through it. You can couple a couple of splines through it. You can drill dowels through it and have them go all the way through after it's glued together and then flush them off. Lots of things to do to help strengthen the joint. Play around, experiment. Next, Frick.
Douglas Brown
It's snowing. Douglas Brown.
says, for planing highly figured curly
Did you guys see that shaving that just came down? I was blowing those shavings around and the static electricity was sticking them to the dust collecting pipe, but then once it wears out, they'll eventually come down, and one just dropped down there. I don't know if you saw it or not. Next, Rick, sorry, please.
Douglas Brown says, for planing highly figured curly maple, what is your recommended frog angle, 45, 50, or 55?
You know what? Most of the time, figured maple you can do with just a 45 degree. Close the throat down, nice sharp blade, obviously, and a light pass. Maple is such a nice, robust wood that I can't think of an example of when I couldn't plane figured maple with and not have it come out just with a regular 45 degree. I've never had to use anything other than that on maples, whether it's bird's eye or curly or fiddleback. They all seem to work out. Next, Rick.
Michael Bartholomew
Hey, Michael.
says, I recently saw a woodworker sharpening plane irons and chisels with nothing but a hard felt buffing wheel. I'm curious to know what you think of this method.
Well, we were taught at BYU, they would use a, probably a 120 grit sanding belt on a big wheel. And then they would go over to the buffing wheel with buffing compound, and that's what they would, that's how they would finish the blade back and front. And it'll cut, but it's not going to give you a precise cut. Now, by that, and people ask me, why don't you strop? Well, I don't strop because on my chisel, for instance, I want that edge to be perfectly straight from there to there, this way, and I want it to be straight this way. And the minute you start buffing, you're going to remove the metal, and that's no longer going to give you that perfectly straight edge. And I sharpen up to 16,000 grit. So that is going to give you a finished surface on almost all woods, to where you're not going to improve it with sandpaper. Using other methods, not what I'm looking for. It'll still move wood, but is it going to give you that perfect flat surface that you're looking for, finished? I don't think so. Prove me wrong. Anybody else to say hello to for Jake?
Yeah.
Who?
Omar.
Omar Milan? This is Omar's dovetail right here. Omar was severely blown up. He was a Marine EOD. Lost a good part of his hand, both hands actually. Lost the leg. Lost all the meat off of his right hand, all off of here, and including his elbow. They had to rebuild all that. These two fingers didn't work at all. There was nothing attached to them. A lot of atrophy in his hand. I had to take his dovetail saw and tape it with some grip tape that we use on our hockey stick, so it was cushioning it a little bit. And he pulled that off, and I was thoroughly impressed. I asked him for it and told him, I said, you give it to me, I'll put it on my wall. So big salute to Omar, incredible work. He and John Hayes and Dom were all three were Marine EODs, and all three ended up being in the hospital at the same time. And all three have come to our class. Dom and John were were in the same class. Omar was in a different class. Thoroughly impressed, boys.
And Noah Mutry.
Noah? I read all your posts, Noah. We're on the same line, brother. Next, Rick.
Super Westman in the...
Super Westman. Howdy.
Hey Rob, I got a question. When is the last time you made an end grain cutting board? Who was it for? Did you use hand tools?
Moose, would you do me a favor? Would you walk over on that bench that I have set up in front of my tool cabinet over there? There should be a maple cutting board sitting there. The corners are knocked off it. Would you bring that over to me, please, and thank you? I haven't made, I don't know if I ever made an end grain cutting board. Oh, yeah, I did. You want to run up and grab that one, Jake? Up in my office? Up on the one made out of plywood? Huh? You see what I'm talking about?
Is that end grain?
Yeah. Half of it is.
Yeah.
There's another shaving. One left. Next, Rick.
This is from Zone.
Remind me when we come back to the end with the cutting board thing. I'll chat with you a little bit about that.
This is from Zone Stomper.
What's his name?
Username.
Zone Stopper.
Thanks,
Moose. Oh, by the way, there's a cutting board for you. Can you get that cutting board for Moose? It's in the cabinet right there, Frick. I'll get Jake to get it. Bob Abbott made it for you. Hey, Ken.
He says, I'm a new woodworker in Chicago. Any ideas on how to best build up my tool set without spending too much?
A new woodworker in Chicago.
Any ideas on how to best build up my tool set without spending too much?
Is that a serious question? Well, let's just put this into relative terms. So I was asked the question on the top 5 power tools. So, and we wrote them down. Where to put them? Right here. So I'm just going to show you, because it's all relative. I mean, what are you buying? What do you want? So I know this isn't your question, but I'm going to get to that. So the table saw, a saw stop is going to cost you, let's say $5,000. An 8-inch jointer is going to cost you $3,000. A good drill press is going to cost you $1,000. A 12-inch planer, probably $3,000. A 14-inch bandsaw, I'm kind of out of the loop, but I'm going to say a 14-inch bandsaw, a decent one, is going to cost you $3,000. So top 5 power tools, 5, 8, 9, $15,000. Oh, that doesn't include a dust collector. So $15,000 to buy 5 essential, decent power tools. And then somebody asked, what were my favorite five favorite hand tools? So Ken, help me out here. US dollar price on the plane. My dovetail saw is $275. That chisel is $110. The marking gauge, I think, is $140. The panel saw is, how much is the panel saw, Jake? Regular price?
$240 right now.
What is it? Regular price? $300.
5.5 plane, $399.
US.
If it's Crossman, yeah.
$399. So $400. Plain $400. So you're talking $300, $440, $550, $950, $1,025, $1,225, $1,225 for my top 5 hand tools versus $15,000 for the top 5 power tools. That's a little unfair because you need more than one chisel. You need more than one saw. But how about if I answer that question, what would be my top 5 hand tool purchases? It's going to be a little bit different. And I'm going to come back to my shooting board, or cutting board. What?
Hang on. We only have 2 new recurring donations so far tonight.
Do we? Okay, we need more recurring donations. I'll get on my knees if I have to and beg. We need this in order to carry out the program and help these soldiers. So I know it's Christmas, but what better gift? What better gift? I got a couple things to do here. So the first thing I would purchase, Ken, if I say it, can you calculate the price? I'm gonna help this guy. Yeah, keep track of it. So my first purchase would be my stones, and I would get the minimalist kit. So minimalist kit of stones, and then I would get a 5.5. I would get 3 chisels. I would get a 1/4, a 1/2, and a 3/4. I would get a dovetail saw and a crosscut saw. What else? Yeah, I would get a block plane. Got some chisels. You got to get some marking tools, so I would get a combo square, a 6-inch. You leave, Moose? Yep. See you later, brother.
See you, Moose.
Monday.
Moose.
A 6-inch combo square. Yeah, you need a mallet. This is bare minimum. You're going to need some other. You're going to need a dovetail marking knife. You need a Sean shim. All right, that'll get you started.
You want me to add that up?
Yeah, please, just give me a price. Well, Ken's adding that up. I was asked about a shooting board. So I have a business group. We meet once a week, Zoom, and I put out a challenge one time, and I said, the interesting thing about cutting boards, and for anybody that's doing woodwork as a business, some of the good advice I was given was, you have to have a bread and butter item. You have to have something that keeps some cash flow coming in. You have to have something that people can afford. Everybody can afford. You have to have something that doesn't cost you a ton of money to produce, in meaning material. And cutting boards have always had a place. They're a great wedding gift, they're a great anniversary gift, they're a great Christmas gift, they're a great gift for anything. And people use them. And especially if you pay attention to this whole microplastics things, people have really gotten away from wooden cutting boards into using these plastic ones. But you notice they get all fuzzy? Well, that fuzzy stuff ends up in your food, into your gut. It's really crazy. This microplastic thing is nuts. So maybe we're back to wooden cutting boards. So what I had said to the guys, I said, let's everybody design a cutting board. This is a tough one, right? There's so many cutting boards. And I came up with this idea. So we build a lot of workbenches. Kevin Lasky, and there's always offcuts. So we do cutting boards out of Baltic birch and MDF. We do Baltic birch base, MDF top, but we also do a Baltic birch base and a Baltic birch top. Nice thing about Baltic birch is it's a premium plywood. It's thin sheets of Baltic birch, laminated like you make plywood, so the grain goes this way, that way, this way, that way, this way, that way, but it's all solid birch, so it's the same material throughout. And we have a lot of offcuts. So I took a bunch of it and I glued it together, and I just did a little something funny so that you couldn't quite figure out, well, how does he get that lines all the way around? And glued it all together and oiled it up, and I thought, well, that's kind of cool, other than it makes me dizzy when I look at it. That was mine idea. I'm doing a class. We're just about to advertise. We're going to advertise it today or tomorrow. Locally, we're going to do it right here. It's going to be on Saturdays. It's a 4-hour class. We're going to teach people. They'll come. Tools will be provided. Wood will be provided. Bench space will be provided. And we're going to teach them how to use a hand plane. It'll already be sharpened. They're going to come in. They're going to learn how to sharpen on a piece of pine, plane on a piece of pine. And then we're going to give them a piece of maple that's already been surfaced. They'll cut it off with a saw, and then it's up to them to plane it. Now, the nice thing about a hand plane surface, this is just a hunk of maple. This is a great cutting board. Doesn't take much. It's just a piece of maple. But with a hand plane surface, if you sand this and it gets wet, when it dries, it's fuzzy. But if it's a hand plane surface and it gets wet, when it dries, it goes right back to this. And this feels just like glass. It's beautiful wood. And with a sharp hand plane, it's easy to do. So that's what I wanted to tell you about that. And if you're anywhere near where we live in Grand Bay, the first class we're going to do is next Saturday. So I was telling you about the picture frame. So this is a piece. This box is made out of red oak, and then it's been sandblasted. I don't know if you can see. Jake, can you get in close on this? So after I build the box, I sandblast it. So you see what happens? How it eats away all the soft wood? And,
Not softwood.
well, soft wood.
Soft portions of the wood.
Yeah.
The spring
Wood.
Spring.
Yeah. And then the color just comes from that reaction. Now, I try to leave the inside alone, but it's spilled over a little bit. Leather bottom, wood hinge. So that's what the picture frame looks like. Now, am I forgetting something? Did you come up with a price, Ken?
$22.50.
So $2,250 will buy you a really basic kit. You're going to have to spend more than that eventually, but that will get you started. So compared to power tools, it's a drop in the bucket. And you can start with, you can start easy, because on your sharpening, you can buy just the diamond stone first, which is now the finest grit on that's 1,000, but that'll get you started on softwoods, and then you can eventually add the other pieces to it. Next question, Frick. Any more? And Jake, just give me a shout out when there's somebody else to say hello to.
I can't make out this username. I'll just say Zas, Z-A-S. Is there anything on Rob's dovetailed finger joint jig he would improve if he were to make it again? I'm making my own design and would like to know if Rob had any pain points with it.
You're talking about the one I used for making boxes? He called it a dovetail. I assume that's what he meant.
Dovetailed finger joint.
If there's anything that I would change on it? Is that what he asked me?
Yeah. Is there anything on Rob's dovetailed finger joint jig he would improve if he were to make it again?
Again, if I came up with a way of making it better, I would have already done it. You just have to make sure that you can allow for some very slight adjustments. So when I made mine, I made it so that you could move, there's 3 bolts that hold the router to the underside. One stays put, it's in a round hole, same size as the bolt. The other 2 are slotted, so I can rotate it like that just a little bit to do a very slight adjustment in the size of the pin. But no, I wouldn't do anything different. Ken, what were you going to say?
Well, a couple things.
Oh, we had a big shout out for somebody.
Just to add on to that, some rotor plates have 4 bolt holes. So do you leave one off?
Yeah,
Just use 3?
no. So I don't know if they heard them, but Ken said some router bases have 4 bolts. And if that all I would do is one would stay round hole, same size as the bolt. The other 3 you have to have it oblong so that you can actually loosen the 4 of them and move it just slightly, which would allow you to open or close the gap between the cutter and that little guide pin that runs.
And you don't need a whole lot.
No, we're talking thousandths of an inch.
Yeah.
Just to dial it in. What were you going to say?
Well, 2 things. We wanted to give a shout out to the Mountain View Co-op. And the other thing, one of the customer service inquiries I had this week asked if you would talk about using a number 4.5 plane. He's bought all our Wood River 7, 6, and 4.5, and he's mastered the 6 and the 7 and the 5.5. But no matter what he does, he can't get the 4.5 to work like he wants it to. It chatters.
Okay,
And,
I'll address that. But can you give a little more of a shout out to the Mountain View?
Yeah,
He does. Can you put the camera on him?
what?
Can you put the camera on him, Jake? So he's not just.
The green light's on. I'll just go up there. So the Purple Heart Canada.
Well, let me introduce Ken. So Ken is not only my shop manager, Ken is there's the other shaving just came down. You missed it. What's your title? It's a director?
Executive Director.
So Ken is the executive director of the purpleheartproject.org Canadian division. He's also is one of the board members for the Purple Heart Project US division. In addition to being a co-chair with me on the local chapter of Sleep in Heavenly Peace. So he's highly involved.
So the first corporate or donation that PHP Canada got last year, well, in 2024, was from the Mount Pleasant Cooperative. And the Mount Pleasant Co-op is a charitable organization, but not a tax-free charity. However, they own several properties in Vancouver area, and they, well, maybe several, maybe 2 at least, but maybe more. And they run them as co-ops, and they have a volunteer board of directors, and each year they use the profit from the renting the buildings to maintain the buildings and then provide donations to charitable organizations. One of them being the Royal Canadian Legion that rents space from them in one of their buildings. And they, Larry McDonald knows about your work, and he contacted us earlier in the year and wanted to recommend us as one of the charities. And we're so happy to say that they did. So we worked with Larry and Dorothy Kelt and Bruce and a couple other ones there. And they were great to work with, and we appreciate their donation and certainly appreciate their efforts and.
Can we say how much?
5,000.
5,000? Is it going to do that each year?
It's in the bank. Oh, I don't know about each year, but
Well, thank you. That's
thank you for
beautiful.
that. Yeah.
5,000 Canadian, which today would be 3,000 US, unfortunately. But still 5,000 Canadian. Won't diminish that at all. Jake, anybody shout to?
Tori is on.
Tori. So Tori was here in May? She was here this year.
No. She was here just recently. She was here in September.
Oh, she was September. So she was here with the gal from Hillsboro, Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tori is a combat wounded vet whose dad, Michael, was here last year. So that was our first father-daughter combat wounded vet. Tori. And she did better than her father cutting dovetails. Didn't mean to say that out loud.
And
Now he'll have to come back.
artists.
Artist?
The artist.
Super Dave's mom. Merry Christmas. Next.
Anthony Elder wants to know what province we live in.
Who does?
Anthony Elder.
Anthony Elder.
This is what province do you live in? I love the 2 flags on your apron.
We live in New Brunswick. Nouveau Brunswick for some people. The only officially bilingual province in Canada. All other provinces are unilingual. We're bilingual. And we're just outside of St. John. We're an hour from the Calais, Maine border, which means if you're coming to come to our class, come to visit, you can fly into Bangor, Maine, which is a 3-hour drive. You can fly into St. John, New Brunswick, or Fredericton, which is about 45 minutes to an hour. Just a nice little cozy community right on the river. Next, Rick.
Troy Burns just said that the Sleep in Heavenly Peace in Knoxville, Tennessee delivered 40 beds today.
Wow. Okay.
That sounds like chaos to me.
Yeah, 40 beds. We have delivered 20
In total.
in total.
And built 24.
And we built 24. But Knoxville's a lot bigger. We're getting started. We had a build yesterday. In fact, we had a build yesterday that involved a group, a veteran outreach group that came down, and they're in the process of opening their own chapter in Sussex, New Brunswick. Jim Rossetti up in Moncton, New Brunswick, who's been associated with us for a long time. Jim has opened a chapter up in Moncton. So that and the Kodiak Woodworkers Club are now doing the same thing up there. So the word's getting out. There's a great need, and it's a great opportunity to do something that really has a lasting impact on these children. Ken could tell you all about that because he and Al do the deliveries. Al McNeil, who's the other combat wounded vet that works here, Ken and I head up that project here. We were on television last night. The CTV, Canadian Television. Is that what it stands for?
CTV, yeah.
Which is a national broadcasting corporation. Came out and did a little spot on this. So hopefully that will get us some more attraction so we can have more requests for bids and some more funding. Next, Rick, please. Speaking of funding.
Jeff Schnabb
Yeah, Jeff?
says on the tool cabinet behind Rob, how did he fix the mismatched color?
How did I fix? Do you mean on the
Oh,
mahogany?
yeah, sorry. How would he fix the mismatched color?
I wait. I'll wait for it to oxidize. This is mahogany. This is not mahogany. That's mahogany. There's probably 4 or 5 years between when I made this and this. That's why the difference in the color. So that will eventually catch up to this.
He was talking about the center drawers, though.
The what?
Just the center drawers. They're
Oh.
the most obvious.
This is Sapele. Yeah, this is obvious. That's just oxidation, which is really odd because there's very little UV light in here that comes from the outside. There's windows on the other side of that building, but there are no windows in here. So it doesn't just take. Well, I really like this cabinet. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I love that English brown oak.
Okay,
Nothing is the answer.
John Adams,
Hey, John.
will you please, from Denver,
John from Denver.
Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado. I don't know of any
USA.
other Denver. Unless it's Bob Denver from Gilligan's Island.
Will you please do a video tutorial, but we can answer it right now, on plane progression, i.e. scrub plane, then which ones do you use next, all the way through to the final dimensions and squareness?
Okay, so he wants, starting with a rough board.
Yeah.
Well, so the first thing you're going to do is take your scrub plane, which sits right here, right there in that spot, blank spot. And it's not here. So I would use my scrub plane first. The reason is, can you go grab me a scrub plane?
Do you want a rough board?
It's not there. I was gonna call you today. Did you borrow this the other day?
No,
I thought you came in looking for it.
not me.
Oh. Jake found it before I got through to you. I went over this, it's not there. First thing is gonna be scrub plane. Scrub plane is kind of like an axe with a bit more control. You can take a lot of material quickly. In fact, I'll demonstrate. Ken, would you grab me a piece of, in that pine section, on the bottom left, you gotta go around this, yeah. There's some pine boards left over from the class. I don't think you can get at it that way. Bottom left. Practice boards. So, another question, Frick, while we're preparing?
Is that long enough?
No, I want one of the bigger, the practice pieces.
I know, but...
Give me one of them. Just give it to me.
Okay, only two to pick from. You're so choosy. Oh, you keep these out.
I wanted the 2x6 one.
Oh, well,
I just want to do it on the edge. What?
They're dressed.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to demonstrate using the. I'd use this, but this stuff's really expensive. Another question, Frick, while we're setting up?
Yeah, Henry in the chat says, what is the best, cheapest wood to make furniture or simple projects out of? Picture frames, small boxes, etc.
What is it? Thank
The
you.
best, cheapest wood.
Oh, you know the story? You can get it. What are the three things, Ken? You can get it fast, you can get it cheap, or you can get it good. You can have any two, but you can't have all three. So when you say cheap, I said, no, I forget cheap. Why would you put time into something that was cheap? Read the question again, please.
What is your opinion on the best, cheapest wood to make furniture or simple projects out of? Picture frames, small boxes, etc.
Well, I'm going to ask Ken while he's here. 4-quarter walnut is now how much?
$15 or $16.
So you're paying, this is Canadian, $15 or $16 for a board foot. In case you don't know what a board foot is, a board foot would be 12 inches this way, 12 inches that way, 1 inch thick that way. How much is maple?
$5.50.
Maple is only $5.50. Do you remember what any other ones are? Pine?
Cherries.
Cherry? How much is cherry?
Cherries about the same as maple.
Cherry's only $5.50.
Pine's a little bit cheaper than that.
Pine's a little cheaper than that. So find a wood that's not currently in vogue so you can afford it. But you don't get good cheap wood, even if you harvest it yourself. Somebody came here the other day and they were telling me they got actually Brandon, he got a bunch of wood from some guy that died. It's been stored in his barn. So here's a problem with wood like that. It's called powder post beetles. They're small. They leave a hole about the size that a ballpoint pen would leave. And they'll eat just about anything. And you don't find them, notice they're there, until you start finding these little pyramid-shaped piles of white powder. And they'll infest everything. I've lost thousands of dollars worth of wood because of that. That's the advantage of kiln-dried lumber, is that it kills them. If you get air-dried, you always have run that risk. So Careful of the free stuff because it's usually worth what you paid. So there is no inexpensive cheap wood. So just learn to become really efficient when you do your cutouts so you're not wasting a lot. Anyway, so let me, first plane we're going to use the scrub plane. Scrub plane has a thick blade, big open throat, and probably the most noticeable feature is that the blade is curved. On the end, very simple tool. All it has is a lever cap that holds it in place. And you can go in there and you can move. You can move a lot of material quickly. I gotta clean all this up after. Now, if I was doing that edge, I would get as close as I can by eye. And then I would come in. Now, on a big edge like this, I may have switched and used my longer soled plane. I could straighten an edge with this plane. Now, once I get it so that it's flat, oh no, I got a big chunk missing there. So keep going until I get it flat. Flat has nothing to do with square.
We're up to 6 recurring donations.
Pardon? 6
We're up to
recurring?
6 new.
Keep going, folks. I love you for it. Okay, now that it's flat, I got to see if it's square. And I think I may have lucked out. No. So I'm high on this side. This side's low, this side's high. So I'm going to run my plane like this so that where there's no blade right here is referencing on this side of the board, meaning I'm only taking a partial shaving. I'm taking off the high side, preserving the low side. I'll do that until I get close. And then I'll take 1 or 2 cleanup passes. Check it. And now it's square. Now, if I wanted that to be nice and straight and the board was much longer, I would use a bigger plane. Because the bigger plane will allow me to go in and reference off of any of the high spots and bring them down to one level. So if I put the edge, my plane on there like that, see how that's pivoting? So I got a high spot in the middle. So I'm going to take that out by just eating away at the center. Each time backing up a little bit, not going all the way, not coming all the way back here, not going all the way forward. Check it again. That's getting closer, but not quite. Check it again. Much better. And check it again. There, nice and straight. Come back one more time and check it this way, and I kept it square. On this side of the board, if it was rough, I would use my scrub plane to get rid of the rough exterior and get it as close as I can by eye. And then I would come in with either that plane or this plane, depending on how long the board was. The longer the board, the longer the plane needs to be in order to do it accurately. And I could get by with just, well, those 3. This for all the pieces under, say, 3 feet, and this for anything over 3 feet. And that's how I would process my wood. Now, somebody, was that the same guy that asked about the 4.5? Hello, Frick.
I don't know. I asked the question. I don't know, but did you finish the answer for that question in the progression?
Yeah, okay, so I've kind of changed my tune on this. And I'll show you why. So this is the guy. I'm going to take a picture of this. I'm going to make sure that this goes to Luther. This is for Bill with his idea on there, Bill. I just took that picture. I'm going to send it to Luther so that he will write a script and we'll produce a YouTube. Done. Okay. So the thought has always been that this was the last plane that you come in to clean up your board after you've dimensioned it. And the reason why I kind of have changed my mind about that, David Charlesworth was the one that convinced me that the 5.5, he called it a super smoother because it performs so well. And one of the problems with the 4.5 is that it doesn't have the mass, it doesn't have the weight, and it's got such a short toe out here that you don't have a whole lot of reference on the board before the blade engages the plane engages the board. And as you meet that resistance, it has a tendency to hop on you, which is what you're discovering. Now, if it does do that, and now you've got a little bit of a ridge right here, you can't get rid of it by continuing to go the same way. You've got to turn your plane on an angle and kind of cut underneath those ripples so that it doesn't just continue.
I don't think that's sharp, is it?
I have no idea. I'm going to find out here in a second. If it isn't, I can just switch the blade. No. I'll spare the 32 seconds. What happened to this knob, Jake? It's all smacked, broken. Obviously, this has hit the ground. A little wax on the sole, reduce the friction. Now you can go in and you can clean up an area easier with this plane simply because you don't have such a big sole. So you're not going to reference off the bumps. You can go in between them and still make contact with the wood, the surface. I hope that's not a rock that I'm going over.
We're up to 7 new recurring.
7, let's go. Now, my suggestion, if you're having problems with the 4.5, is when you first start, you got to really bear down out here. Keep this hand so it's just pushing forward. And power your way onto the board, meaning keep everything nice and tight as you engage the wood so that you're not jumping around. I still like this plane, but I like the 5.5 better because I can easily switch from doing this to using the shooting board. This works on the shooting board, this doesn't. Way too short, way too light. Next question, Frick, please.
Chris wants to know,
Hi, Chris.
what pen does Rob use for marking his dovetails? My pens suck marking on wood.
Oh, you know what I was just going to say? Do you remember who gave this to me, Jake?
Yeah,
Aaron? Aaron, one of the Vetsics here, gave me this pen. I love this pen. It's, I don't know what it is.
Let me see, toss it.
Just a second, I'll show them a feature. So you turn it this way and you got red. You turn it this way and you've got 0.0. That's not a 5.
It's 7?
No, smaller than
I think it's 5.
lead. And you keep turning it and you get a blue.
Black.
Black? I thought it was blue. What color is that?
Black.
Black.
Black, red, and pencil. And you can
Absolutely love
eraser
this.
up top, right?
Oh, there's an eraser. I don't make mistakes. I got an eraser there. We should sell these. I'm so impressed with this.
There is. Let me see.
Let's see if you can find it. Love that pen. It's got everything you need in one. Great. That pen. I'll see if I can find them for you. Next Frick, please.
This one's from Marge Rintoul.
Pardon?
Marge Rintoul in the
Marge?
chat.
Hey, Marge.
Is there a rule of thumb for the size of a table saw crosscut sled compared to the size of the table saw top?
I don't think so. But you know what? I have two. I have a big one that you'll always end up cross-cutting something and you don't have the capacity to do it. So I made a big one. Ken, you got a measuring tape on you? I do. So this one has, my big crosscut sled has a 22-inch capacity. So I can crosscut a panel 22 inches. The problem is that that's heavy, it's big, and having to lift that thing up every time I need to use it. So then I made a small one. I can't believe I waited as long as I did to make it, but the small one gets used so much more, and there's the small one. And that has a capacity of 10 3/8 of an inch. And this is my favorite because I get to use it all the time. It's light, it's easy to work with, nice, very accurate. So the answer is no rule of thumb, but I would suggest one for big stuff and a smaller one, which is much more convenient to use. By the way, when I did this, I was using the scraps, so you see a couple of joint lines in there. If I was going to do it again, I would use all the same piece, but heavy too. Next Frick, please. I'm going to clean up a little here.
Software CDN in the chat says, it's a username. How often does Rob get new tools? New planes and chisels more specifically. Does he always swap them out or has he been using the same ones for years?
Once in a while, we'll sell my tools off. Just somebody wants one, we'll sell it. Or Jake sells it without me knowing. It happens more often than not. When we switched to our new handles, new handle material, so I changed out all my saws. Occasionally, I'll make a new marking gauge with different material on it. I've got 3 or 4 5.5s. One Jake ruined because he was experimenting with the grip, and it has about 6 holes drilled in the side of it. Actually, it's not ruined, but it just looks funny. That hasn't changed, that hasn't changed, that hasn't changed. 5.5 has. The rest of those haven't. Saws have. Not terribly often. Next, Frick, please.
Can you give an update on Bo? People are asking.
Yes, I can. So my son Bo was in a very bad motorcycle accident 8 weeks ago tomorrow night. Left him with severe injuries. He fractured 15 vertebrae. He broke his femur on his right leg. Yep. Left leg. Crushed his right ankle.
And broke his tibia and fibula.
What?
I thought he broke his tibia and fibula on the right too, above the ankle.
Oh, I don't know that. When they took him to the hospital, he had a piece of tailpipe from the car that he slid underneath, going from the inside of his thigh all the way down to his knee. They had to cut it off the car, and they removed it when they got to the hospital. He's been in intensive care this whole time. My wife has taken very good care of him. She's there every day, all day. We take him his food. When she saw what they were feeding him, tube feeding him for the first 4 or 5 weeks he was in there, she said, no, not doing that. So she found this stuff called Liquid Hope, made in the US, made out of real food. No GMOs, no gluten, no dairy, no sugar. And the nursing staff were quite amazed at how fast his wounds were recovering. Unfortunately, he has a bed sore on his tailbone, so they've been dealing with that. He's had lots of breathing issues because of the severe thoracic injuries tied to his the vertebrae in his back. He had double pneumonia. One lung had collapsed. Real touch and go here a couple of weeks ago. But the good news is he can talk. Yesterday they removed the PICC line that went right down to his heart. They kept the trach in. It's capped off, so he's not using it. So he's breathing on his own. Hasn't had to have assisted breathing. Still has a hard time coughing to get up that phlegm, so they have to go in and suction it still. But Monday he moves to there is a well-known and good reputation. What's the name of it?
Stan Cassidy.
Stan Cassidy Center in Fredericton, New Brunswick has 20 beds. It's known well for its success rate in rehabilitating people with brain injuries and spinal injuries and things like that. So he'll have a private room. My wife will be able to stay there with him. Don't know about the food yet. We may be providing the food, but it just amazes me that the hospital here did not make the connection between, I shouldn't say make the connection. The food that is supplied, the doctors and the nurses themselves wouldn't eat it. They admit that, and I wouldn't eat that stuff. And yet that's what they're giving these people that are trying to heal. So we make our own food and take it into them. And water, too. You'll be drinking that stuff full of all those chemicals. Yep, call me crazy. Anyway, so his spirits have maintained. He can move both arms like this at the elbow. He's developed a little bit of movement in his wrist. And the hope is that he'll continue. He realizes it's a long road. It was a very severe injury. Thank you for asking, and I appreciate those who've been praying for him. Much appreciated. The whole family does. Next question, Frick.
Just an update. Brent Nelson that said that we've reached 10 recurring new subscription payments.
Thank you, folks. If we can do this every week, we'll get to a point where we can breathe easier. We were all celebrating, yay, we paid for 2024. And then you realize, we got to start again. So big thank you to those of you who are stepping up. You don't know how much it means. If you could only be here to witness a class and see the transformation that takes place, it's beyond description. So, did we get Andrew on? Are we going to be able to get Andrew on?
No. Jack Lane sent his contact information sent my contact information to him, but he hasn't contacted me.
Andrew, if you're watching, call Frick. Even if we just had you on audio, love to hear from you, Andrew Burrow. Andrew's a forward observer, combat wounded vet. We found him a year ago. No, wasn't it April or May class? We hired him. He's working here, and then he ended up with having a brain aneurysm, and that really set him back. It was a touch and go for a while, but he's made a remarkable recovery, and he's a good guy. He's a good friend of mine. Next question, Frick.
Michael Plant asked,
Hey, Michael.
would you consider a combination jointer / planer if floor space is at a premium?
Yeah, I would. I actually have a Makita 6-inch jointer, 12-inch planer. The only thing I don't like about it is the small machines like that, what they don't have in low RPM horsepower, they make up for in high RPM, so it whines, screams actually. But yeah, it's a very convenient piece of equipment. And yeah, the only combination machines I don't like are joiner planers that convert from one to the other, because you'll never get those joiner tables lined up every time you move it. So best to have joiner on the top, slide your piece underneath for the planer, or off to the side like and Makita and Hitachi both make a unit that has the jointer on one side, the planer on the other. But yeah, that's a good compromise. Next, Rick.
This is from GB. He says, I find my old Stanley 5 Bailey gets clogged at the corner only on one side. I checked flatness, fit of chip breaker, frog, etc. Do you have any advice?
So when you're planing, the one corner gets clogged. So what I'm going to do is just, how would I tackle that? So the first thing I would do is go in and I would look and make sure that when I put my blade and chip breaker together, and I look in the light like that, I don't see any light, meaning I know that chip breaker is coming down and making contact with the back of the blade. So there's no way that there's a spot in there where shaving is getting jammed. And then you already said it, but I would make sure that the blade is parallel to the front of the throat so that gap where the shaving comes out is uniform across there. So that's not occurring. And boy, if those two didn't do it, you got me, but those would be the two. And I would suspect it's probably an issue with the chip breaker not making full contact with the blade, little gap there, shaving gets jammed in there. I can't think of any other reason why that would occur. Now, every once in a while, what I would do is I would go in, I would clean the back side or the top side of my chip breaker because it gets, especially, we use a lot of pine. It's our secondary wood. And as a result, I can't get that out. As a result, you get, this is nice and clean. If I took one out of my 5.5 right now, I'll show you. See all that pitch gathered up on the top side? And that offers resistance, so I would clean that off. That'll come off easy with a little bit of Varsol paint thinner. So clean that up. Polish it even. Take it over to the buffer and polish the top side so that it's nice and slippery, so that when the shaving comes out, it slides right up over and there's nothing to slow it down and cause it to stick. Next, Frick.
Just 1 second. It's from Kyle Rogers.
Who?
Kyle Rogers.
Hey, Kyle.
Do you prefer to use a plywood base or a MDF base for your crosscut sled?
Oh, MDF. I just find plywood just does not stay flat. MDF has a nice hard wearing surface, and I think if I was having to bank on something remaining flat, I would give the advantage to MDF over plywood. Even the Baltic birch. When we bring in sheets of Baltic birch, a single sheet usually is pretty warped and twisted, but MDF, no. So MDF. What's up, Frick?
Okay, we're gonna call Andrew.
Oh, we are? Oh, beautiful.
So you can. It's gonna be audio only.
Audio. So I don't have a picture. Do we have a picture of him? We don't have a picture we can put up?
Oh shoot, we can't make calls in here.
Why not?
The summer session's usually pretty bad.
Hello,
Andrew?
how's it going?
Dandy, how are you?
Not too bad.
Can somebody in the chat just tell me that you can hear Andrew fine?
They can.
They can? Good. So Andrew just turned 40, and for his birthday present, he had a brain aneurysm, which I wouldn't call a great birthday present, but actually what I'm going to ask him to do, because he had volunteered, I just want to tell them your story in terms of what led you to the PHP program, how woodworking has helped you, and for whatever reason, we need to convince these people that we are the best place to be sending their spare change to help us run our program so we can help people like you. How's that for a mandate?
Yeah, sure. So, I guess to start with, I was in the Canadian military. I spent 15 years in the Army. Was a forward observer and a JTAC, so doing airstrikes and artillery strikes with the infantry.
Can I interrupt you just every once in a while?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that wouldn't understand what a forward observer does. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so I traveled around with the infantry or with the tankers, and anytime that they had a problem they couldn't handle with their small arms, we would target it with indirect fire with field artillery or with dropping bombs off fighter jets, whatever it took. That's kind of what I did.
And your job was to call in the coordinates?
That's right, yeah. So we had different technology to help us out. But yeah, everything from binoculars and a compass up to laser range finders and stuff like that. But yeah, we locate the enemy and target them and provide support that the commander needed. So a lot of stress, a lot of interesting times.
Relatively close to the action?
So we were always about one down behind the lead element. So, you were being shot at, but you were far enough away that you could still think. But yeah, we were pretty close, got to see a lot of stuff. So I ended up being medically released in 2014 with PTSD because of being in Afghanistan a couple times. And I've been in and out of the hospital with treatment. I've been in for a few months stints and stuff. And really, nothing's been helping. I don't get a lot of joy or stuff anymore. And one of the things I found one night was that the PHP, doing woodworking and stuff. And so I applied, and then
How did you find us, Andrew?
I don't even remember, Rob. I was just looking around the internet one night, and I seen that you guys were running the program, and I applied during COVID, and that didn't work out. So I applied again just this year, and then I lucked out and got approved to come, and it was great. One of my big things has gone is I've lost my self-confidence. So being able to come to something like that and see and learning a skill and really having proof in front of you that you are capable, I can't even say how much it's helped my self-confidence and stuff. My wife notices the difference. Kids notice the difference. I go out and try to do stuff whenever I can because I just love it. No, it's great, the camaraderie with the guys. I'm not sure if Rob mentioned, but before I was injured, I was trying to come down and help out with the courses because I love seeing the guys and seeing the difference it makes in them all. It's absolutely fabulous.
And the food?
Oh, the food. The food is amazing. You can tell them all how healthy it all is, but no, it's amazing food and it's really good for you. And anybody that says they're hungry when they leave there is
lying.
A tall tale, that's for sure, yeah. The food is fabulous.
Tell me how you felt that morning you sold 3 of your Christmas trees. He makes these decorative Christmas trees.
So one of my goals for years now is to try to get in, even before the PHP, I was starting to try to do some woodwork.
Whatever. Last one?
Yeah. We were just about to peak.
Try again.
Oh,
One of your goals, even before with woodworking, even before PHP, that's where we lost you.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no. One of my goals was to try to be a little more self-sufficient, and I'm out on a pension and I don't have much income, so I wanted to do some woodworking or something to make a little money, and I never had the confidence to do it. And just the other day, I was finally felt like a place where I could, and my wife showed me these plans to make these 3-foot tall Christmas trees, and I made a bunch, and I made 3 and put them up for sale, and they sold right away. And so I'm still making those, and I'm donating all the money to the food bank here in Hampton, my hometown, to try to help people out there. So
Good for you.
it feels great to be giving stuff back and helping out. But it's been great. I can't say enough good things about the program. It's been fabulous, and everybody I've met, I think I've been down to 4 or 5 courses now that have come through, and everybody gets so much out of it. It's absolutely fabulous. Yeah.
Yeah, we feel the same way.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And you still like us?
Yeah. Yes, I still like you guys. Yes. I would be down more often, but I still can't drive. I had a brain aneurysm, and I get dizzy just looking around, and so shoulder checks or driving is really hard for me. So that a little bit house-ridden right now, but hopefully when the weather gets a little bit better, I'll be able to get back down and start helping out again down there.
So you're still taking physio? You're still in physio?
Yeah, doing physio. So I had my aneurysm. I ended up with some minor paralysis down my right side. So I had to learn to walk again, and my shoulder's still messed up. The fine muscles in it it's hard to do a lot with my right arm, but luckily I'm left-handed, so I've been able to keep doing most things. And then the other thing that's messed up is my vision, my peripheral vision. Anything I see moving in my peripheral, instead of just registering, it makes me dizzy. So, it's kind of relearning how to do everything.
Have they tied your aneurysm to any of the TBIs that you had from your service?
So.
Oh, right.
They're fighting about that.
I know the answer to that.
Yeah, so the surgeon says yes, Veterans Affairs says no, and it's essentially come to the point where I have to prove it in court. So it's a long story.
Can you share with them that rationale that we both thought was so ridiculous?
So,
This is the way our guys get treated.
Yeah. So when I was in Afghanistan, I was a foreign observer. We dropped a lot of bombs. Some days, like, there was one occasion we dropped 3,000 pounds heavy ordnance, and just outside of danger close. So we were only about 100 meters away, and you really feel it. And different IEDs and stuff that have blown up. So I've been around a lot of explosions, and I had no idea at the time. But every time you're around an explosion, the shockwave goes through your brain, and it can rattle your brain. And essentially, it's the same as being punched, or like a boxer. So I've been dealing since 2014 with Veterans Affairs to try and get them to honor that something's wrong, because I have a lot of reports from different specialists saying that something isn't quite right in there. And so I finally had an appointment with a specialist that was going to be able to diagnose me and get this whole thing to work, so that Veterans Affairs would have to come good and cover this. And then I had a brain aneurysm. And they're saying because I had a brain aneurysm, that masks any effect. There's no way to prove that anything was pre-existing. It can all be blamed on that. So they're not going to help me.
And how long did you wait trying to get in before the brain aneurysm?
Oh, I've been trying since 2014. I had to, when I finally got approved to see this guy, they were going to fly him in from Quebec to see me. It was a year wait after I got approved to see him. So yeah, it's been a really long wait. And, but yeah, so the surgeon says that the aneurysm could definitely have been caused from being exposed to multiple blasts. But Veterans Affairs is using maybe it was a hereditary thing or something, even though I don't have any history of it. Yes. Anyways, yes.
Another reason to clean house in Ottawa. Huh?
Get me a little worked up. I'm a little heated about Veterans Affairs.
So do I.
Yeah. But yeah, so they're instead of taking the high road and saying that there's proof that we could be responsible for this, we should look after you, they're using the other route to say that, well, there's a chance that we're not responsible, so we're not going to help you. And yes, it's a point that, we're going to have to contact a lawyer and try to get them involved. Yeah. So
this scenario plays out so many times.
It does.
You know,
and it really does. It happens with a lot of people. There's a lot of different scenarios, but and that's one of the things another thing that's been good about coming down and seeing everybody at your shop, Rob, is because there's so many guys that have gone through it. There's so many success stories. There's so many guys, like all those EOD guys that come in, like to see that they can get over it, and like it really helps. It's so motivational. Like it makes me feel so much better about anything I've been through, because it's like, look, there's proof that you can get through it. If these guys can, you can too. You're not alone. Like it. Yeah, I'm rambling. I'm sorry. But
That's
yeah,
all right. That's all right. You saw. Yeah, I sent you that link of the shout out Jeff got.
Yes, yes, Jeff on there. It was wonderful to see him, and Jeff's a great guy too. I love seeing Jeff when he's up. Yeah, him and his. Well, he doesn't have the Prius anymore, but that was good. It's great to see his work.
There is life after, and PHP is all about doing whatever we can to help these guys recover and find meaning and purpose in their life again. So please help us do this. You may not be close enough to bake cookies, but your money is much appreciated.
Big difference too. It's living life again, not just existing. Like the happiness and stuff that comes from being able to do this. Yes, it's great.
Yeah, you need to come down again.
I'm trying.
Whenever you tell me, Al will come pick you up. I told you that.
We'll make it work.
All right, sounds good.
Take care, Rob.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate you doing this.
Anytime. Anything to help.
See you, brother.
Bye.
He's a great guy. And the coincidence that we found, and we had a last minute cancellation. It was just like literally a day before the class was to start. Somebody's flight got canceled and wasn't able to come to the class out of Texas. And we're like, how are we going to fill this spot? And then Luther dug through and he found. So if they'd applied during COVID, we don't carry names forward. So if they'd applied during COVID, and because the classes were all canceled, they had to reapply. And he found Andrew. We called him. He was able to come, and it was so beneficial for him. Holy smokes! He had one of the toughest stories. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it. What? I did. I mentioned Angie before you got here. Okay, so how many prizes are we giving away?
One, right?
One? How many commitments did we get?
This is our last.
It's our last one of
Well, it's the last one before Christmas.
Merry Christmas. How many did we end up with?
I don't know.
Recurring donations.
12 was the last count from.
12? And how many did we get last time?
Around that, it was more. It was 10 plus.
Okay, so that's good. We just keep
That's
building
our
on
goal.
this. Keep building. So what are we going to give away? Should we give away a crosscut saw?
We have 13.
What are we going to
Yes.
give away? We give away 3 dead cats, and we give away my a crosscut panel saw. Ian makes these. It's a wonderful job.
We had 11 last
that
time,
saw
so
away.
we're up 2.
Good. This could keep building. Thank you. I don't want to sound like somebody.
Do you want to? Before we close, do you want to explain why recurring donations?
I did. You weren't here.
You did.
We can bank on it.
Right.
We can bank on it. Instead of having to go and plead 12 times or 50 times a year, we just do it once. And if you know of any corporations that are looking for donations, we are a registered charity, a 501c3 in the United States, and we are the official title in Canada is, Ken? Registered Canadian Charitable Organization. That means we can issue tax receipts. And it also means that they look at us with 2 magnifying glasses, one on top of the other, to make sure that every penny is accounted for. So the only money we spend that is not directly going to getting a vet here or providing his tools is we have to pay to have accounting and bookkeeping done for those charities. Okay. Anything else, guys? I keep
All right.
thinking I'm forgetting to do something.
Here we go. 3 dead cats.
First one,
Dry
Dead
nose
cat sweater,
3.
thanks to Moose. I don't have one hanging anymore.
First one's going to Barry Johnson in Alberta.
Hey, Barry. Barry's a longtime friend of mine. Barry, I met Barry at one of the very first shows I did in Calgary way back in 2000, 2001. And he needs it out there. Oh my goodness, they get cold.
Second one's going to Mark Casau in California.
Hey, Mark, depending on what part of California.
And number 3 is going to Jerry Sarkozy in the U.S. Doesn't say where in the
Doesn't say
U.S.,
where?
just United States.
Congratulations, Jerry. All right, who are we going to send an RC Woodworking Crosscut saw to? You'll be cutting everything.
All right, here we go.
Drum roll.
And the winner is David Mackey in Fairfax, Virginia.
Hey, David.
Congratulations.
Virginia, Fairfax, congratulations. And a big Merry Christmas to you. Okay, we're wrapping it up. Merry Christmas, folks. We certainly appreciate you joining us. I hope that we provide a service to you that you find valuable. Please tell your woodworking friends so they can join us. The bigger the audience, better chance we have of filling our financial goal of being able to help as many combat wounded vets as possible. If you know anyone home suffering as a result of wartime experience, regardless of what theater they were in, please turn them on to us, or you find out about it and take it to them. That always works better. And let us do our thing. Big thank you to Luther, who and his wife are somewhere floating around the Pacific. All the work that he does. Ken's here. He's a huge help. I work him to death on this stuff. And we've got our whole board, PHP. I don't want to name them all. I'll forget some. Anybody else? Bench Brigade. Jack Lane and the Bench Brigade. Those boys and Jim up in Moncton have delivered. We have built and delivered, can't remember the number, but I think it's close to 170. If I'm off, I'm only off by a few benches. That's awesome. So the guys that come to the class, guys and gals, get a workbench built for them and delivered to them by the builder. If you would like to be a part of that, contact me and I'll put you in touch with Jack Lane. He will put you on the map, and whenever we have a vet coming from that area, if you're the closest, you'll get a phone call and have an opportunity to build a bench and deliver it to them. Okay? So when will we be back on?
The 28th.
The 28th. So we'll see you before the year's end. Have a Merry Christmas, everyone.
5 more days in the 12 days of Christmas sales.
Oh yeah, we've got a 12 days of Christmas sale going on. Really good deals. Today's deal is the panel saws. How much off, Jake? $60 off of each, both the rip and the crosscut. We got Ian working overtime, so there's lots of them. A new sale is announced each day, and there's 5 more days to it. So you want to save some money, stay tuned. Watch your email. Make sure you're registered to the newsletter. That's how all this information goes out.
Tori wants to know if you can give a shout out to her dad. It's Michael, his birthday today.
Oh, Mike. It's Mike. It's spelled differently. Oh, Mike. Happy birthday, Mike. You made it, brother. There you go, Tori. Best I could do. And a Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, really, to all of the vets that have been to our program. There's been 220 of them. Wish I could name them all, but you make it. We do it because of you, and you literally leave an impact in our lives that will not be forgotten. And thanks for all the support, those people out there that help. Is that it, guys? Okay. See you after Christmas.